Welcome back, everyone, to the AAA, also known as the AAA podcast, where we talk everything from alcoholism to recovery. I'm your host, Joe Van, along with...
The Darren G. How's it going?
That's right, and this is part two of a two-part podcast where first we talked about Thanksgiving in this October Canadian season that we got in front of us, and now we're going to talk about a spooky film. And this film in of itself is kind of a part two because it is a sequel to the last film that we talked about. So before jumping into it, actually, Darren and I had a little discussion before starting the podcast that doing movie reviews on the AA podcast was it was a good idea at heart and in theory, and we may or may not do one or two depending on how strongly they relate to alcoholism in the future, but in general, this will be the last one we do for a little while. But regardless, I say let's just jump into it. I mean, it's Halloween, it's Spooktober. Let's get into the spooks, if we shall. So
this one fits perfectly with the season, right?
Yeah, exactly. And it isn't going to be like the entire thing we won't be talking about because the movie has several themes throughout. It's not like its only theme is alcoholism. So we're only going to talk about those elements, or the alcoholic elements. So it's not like we're going to be talking about the whole movie like we did with Flight specifically, and with a good portion of The Shining. So, but yeah, so we can in general just kind of slowly ease into the movie by talking about how it's October, and funnily enough, there's a specific holiday, St. Patrick's Day, that's just all about drinking, and it's an Irish tradition. And Halloween, although it's called Halloween, which is short for All Saints Evening, which is a Christian term because November 1st is Saints' Day, but it didn't start as a Christian holiday. It started as a pagan holiday from ancient Ireland, and it was under the name Samhain or Samhain or Samhain or something like that. So Spooktober is it's connected to this theme of drinking, and it was something that people did in ancient Ireland a lot. You know, they get their drink on as the their winter season began, which it began on November 1st. But yeah, so it's related in more than one way. I guess I'd say, right? The spookiness of this season, and the spookiness of this movie and the drinking elements of it. And I guess the only extra thing that I would add, because I've just been doing nothing but taking up all the time right now, is the director, Mike Flanagan, which funnily enough is it could be Scottish or British, I don't know, but it sounds Irish. Flanagan.
You made it sound
yeah. Yeah. He before he did this movie, he did a very popular Netflix show called The Haunting of Hill House. And in The Haunting of Hill House, there are 5 siblings. The bottom 2 are paternal twins, which is the exact same as my family, which is very spooky how much that relates. But also, the youngest brother has an addiction problem. And so this isn't the first time they've just written about people with addictions. And again, it's not something that he's covered entirely. It's only been partially in the media that he has created. But the same can be said for this film. So it not only relates to the first Stephen King book, The Shining, but it also relates director-wise to other works that he's done. So this isn't going to be new field as far as any of that stuff is concerned. A lot of part twos happening all over the place here. The director, the movie, our podcast related to the film. It's all over the place, yeah.
Have you seen the Netflix series?
I just finished watching it, even though it came out in 2018. So yeah.
Hey, is it a series or is it a short movie?
Yeah. Okay. It's a 10-episode, hour-long.
How was it? Did you like it?
Yeah. It's I'll say this much: the best parts are not the scary parts; it's the drama. And then as soon as the scary stuff happens, it kind of sucks. In my opinion, right? Everybody can have their own different take on the show, but the show works best when it's working with the sibling dynamic and how kind of dysfunctional they all are, because they all have had terrible childhoods because of the haunting that happened at Hill House, and it's led them to being extremely dysfunctional people in real life. Some of them are control freaks, other ones are addicts, other ones are this and that. Yeah, so it's very interesting in that regard.
What's quite interesting too is I'm watching a new Netflix series, which is Bly Manor.
Yeah, made by Mike Flanagan. That's his third project.
Right? So just throw that in there really quickly. And that is where we are going to be going to review movies and TV shows and things like this. Is going to be called The Movie Motel.
Yes, yes, yes,
You can
yes.
search that up on YouTube, The Movie Motel. The first episode is now currently live, apparently, as Aiden, the host, is going to mention that he's going to be doing movies, TV shows, things like this, little
Mhm.
games, things like this. Again,
Yeah.
I'll let him mention it, let him throw all that in there, but check it out. Joe himself is going to be on it as well, so it's going to be
I'm
kind of
excited.
like
Yeah.
a three-man kind of gig. But you know, Aiden's going to be the running man, and
Yeah.
we would love to see you guys over there for, the first. Joe, we'd love to get your opinion on it.
Of
It's
course.
currently live now, so check that out. And like you mentioned, um, going on that twin aspect of the two, there's two children in it, and it's a concept that does work
Yeah.
for him, anyways. In his
Yeah. He seems to do it. I'll say this: the Bly Manor show is based on novel, and
Mhm.
I don't know if The Haunting of Hill House is, or if that's original content that he wrote. I at least know that for both shows, he wrote the screenplay. So he wrote it for television. So it's his style in that regard, and obviously he can
Yeah,
rewrite the novel to whatever
and it's
best fits.
all kind of like, I hate to say it, but it's all kind of the same
Yeah. No,
in
well, it's
some
a good
sense,
thing. It's
right?
it's
It's like
yeah, it's more the good,
s-
more of the same stuff. Yeah.
sticks to a recipe that kind of works, and it's
Hmm.
where there's two usually smaller children that are creepy as heck, and there's weird things that
Yeah,
are going on
man.
around them,
Okay. So it's
right?
like we're not talking about this stuff, but just to mention it real quick, because my girlfriend and I started watching The Bly Manor. We're on episode, I
Awesome,
think, 4 or 5 now.
perfect.
The
Same with
the
myself.
kid, the boy, I hate him. I mean, that makes him a good
Um,
actor because he's an antagonist of
what's
sorts.
his name? I forget his name again. It's
I don't
like
even know and I don't care. It's
I
like
remember.
so
How do I
annoying. I just
forget?
hate him acting like an adult. Like I just hate him. He just
But
reminds me of all the worst people that I've met
that's
in
the
my life.
thing where you're gonna have to check out that review, because I
Yeah.
think it's to a point where he could potentially be possessed by someone older, like the Peter. I think his name was Peter.
Exactly. Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's when it
Right?
gives you those
So
vibes because we know that it's a show about hauntings, and so yeah, don't want to give too much of the plot away in that regard, but it's one of those things where you just got to watch and see, I guess. So I'm
I'm so
still in the
happy
middle of it.
you're watching, because I'm
Yeah,
on the same part as you. I just couldn't finish four. I watched halfway of episode 4, but I just
yeah.
couldn't finish it because, again, this week has just been rough for me. So I'm like, I just couldn't sit down and get it. But with like that being said, it's gonna be awesome because I would love to get to hear your opinion and whatever. Maybe we can jump on the movie Motel, all that jazz.
Yeah, yeah.
And with that kind of being said, with the movie Motel,
Media
all
and
that jazz, and
yeah,
movies, let's get back into this movie. And
that's right. This guy.
what's kind of really cool is, I was mentioning in the last part one, is how certain things, kind of like vampires and like having a certain like thirst and powers, this movie really uh kind of, I don't know, it kind of like shows this a bit.
It spoke to you in all the right ways.
Hmm.
Yeah, you were able to
um
relate to its themes. Yeah.
what did you think of the movie?
I'll say production wise, it was great. I feel like the ending dragged a bit without giving anything away, but it's an epic. It is a very long, very big movie. A lot happens. It's
A
got a
lot does
solid
happen.
runtime. So with something, and then the same can be said for shows. There's so much content there. There's so much going on that you're gonna have strong elements and weak elements. And I think
There's
this
a
film
lot going
has
on,
those things. Yeah.
but yeah,
So with
it's not
that
bad.
said, overall, I loved it, especially because I was able to relate to the main character with his drinking problem and
Okay, yeah,
sort of how it specifically affected him. Not that like I got in bar fights or anything, but just with
that was me.
how it was hereditary and how yeah, and just the what comes with the struggles of trying to renew your life after it's been so long. Because
Yeah,
for me, it was like I was an alcoholic for 6 years. And again, that's really not long compared to other people. There are other people that have been alcoholics for 20 years, for 30, right? Like where their liver's actually destroyed and they're like in an extreme situation and their addiction was so much stronger than mine. So I feel incredibly lucky that I was able to jump out when I did. But still, at the same time, I graduated high school and then I just started drinking. Like I feel like if I had actually started to pursue my dreams of like getting into film and television when I was younger, I would be so much farther now than I currently am. But then it begs the question of alternate realities where it's like, if that is the case, I have been like a more like a shittier person? Would I have been more spoiled? Would I not have learned the life lessons that I learned going through the struggles that I went through? Like, not that everything happens for a reason, but that the specific things that happen to you did give you the insight of humility and being humble and like being appreciative. Like maybe I wouldn't be as appreciative in an alternate universe if I didn't have the same problems or went through the same events that I went through. So the struggles are worth it by the mere fact that I see a lot of shitty people in the world, and I think it's because they're all babies who have not unfortunately gone through situations that have allowed their character to grow personally.
Yeah.
Not to judge people, because I'm just saying that in a general sense, but it's like psychologically, I think that's a thing, right?
Yeah. No,
Hardships
100%. Yeah.
grow character and give you perspective. And so I think the biggest assholes in the world are people without perspective.
And
So
yeah,
I'm
and
just
this is
fortunate that I'm not an asshole, I guess. I don't know.
what I was kind of like, this is why I thought this was kind of really cool to relate what a kind of my week and weekend went through with the
Yeah.
Thanksgiving in part 1. And basically gave my piece in part 1,
Hmm.
relating kind of to this. Is just, it's the world is really tough, and family, friends, all that jazz getting thrown into it is can really just take a person of 6 years, 7 years, 20 years sober and
Yeah.
really shake things up.
Hmm. Like if things aren't difficult enough, it's like we have a weakness, right? It's not like now we're awesome that we don't drink. It's like, no, drinking is still such an issue that we can just never drink. So it's not as if we've now beaten it. We just are doing better by staying away from it. So it's like, yeah, the world can throw hurdles at us that make us that can break us down. It's like we're vulnerable creatures, you know? It's like we're not better than the people that currently drink or whatever. It's like we're as vulnerable as current alcoholics. We're just living better lives by not drinking, by not having it possess us on a daily basis. So
Yeah.
that's the only difference between people who don't drink and still drink that are alcoholics, is that we're just able to perform tasks and live a better life than we otherwise would. But it's like we're still just as vulnerable as the people who currently drink. So yeah, if shit gets thrown our way, it can really shake us up. It's like we're not immune to the world.
It really
It's
can. Yeah, and it's no
yeah.
matter, it's hard to deal with. This is
Hmm.
like I'm just like, I always just kind of like, again, I like related to the vampires and like how there's like a complete thirst where it's like you have to literally kill someone to get what you want, just for survival almost.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's insane. It's like how it just like an urge can control you, you know?
Yeah. It's we unfortunately that's our cross to bear, as another saying that's Christian, but I don't mean it to be Christian. Yeah, but it's like, yeah, that's our thing. Everybody's got a thing. Some people it's chocolate, other people it's whatever, right? It's like no one is immune to the human condition, which is, regardless of relationships, it's a certain level of anxiety and depression that come with being a self-aware creature on Earth. So, yeah,
Yeah.
our everybody's
Yeah,
got their own
really it
issues, and
does.
yeah.
And it's hard to like deal with it. And this is like where I was mentioning in part 1, where you almost kind of sometimes feel like, do you have this gift where you're seeing certain you're just seeing certain things where maybe not everybody else is seeing.
Yeah, you're more self-aware to a point where it's kind of strange to be able to see with such clarity that other people aren't even aware of. Yeah, it is interesting.
Yeah, and I'm like thinking,
Yeah.
okay, I remember I was mentioning in part 1, I was like, I think I
Mhm.
have The Shining, where it's not I'm
Yeah.
seeing dead people and seeing all these random things, but it's more of like I'm just seeing the world from a different perspective.
Hmm.
Where if it doesn't go right for me, again, I could turn into a different person where it could be bad, where I don't want to become that person ever again, ever, 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 ever again.
Hmm.
So I
Yeah.
really have to just reflect on my everyday. I use this gift to my advantage.
Yeah, rather than letting it control you. Or at the very least having it be clouded again by drinking. Yeah. And it's something that you don't have all the time. It's momentary, right? Like you say, you can be extremely troubled without drinking, right? And you can be completely clouded by expectations not going the right way or just
Like
by
in the
general
movie.
anxieties. Yeah. But you can still have moments of clarity, just that in general. You can have moments of clarity. That's something that you can't have when you're drinking. And so that is an actual gift that other people haven't necessarily experienced before, right? If they're too caught up in their own lives or they're always busy and they're not able to see things from a larger perspective or able
I
to
think
see
that's
things
a
in
lot.
general. Yeah.
A lot. I don't want you don't anybody listening, you don't have to put yourself in the category, but if the shoe fits, I think a lot of people are like that.
Yeah.
They are
Yeah.
just like so unaware of other people's, like that's my issue with my, I think that's a really big issue with my family is
Hmm.
they are unaware of other people's boundaries,
Yeah.
where they
Yeah.
just they don't care. It's like, oh well, I think this way, too bad. No,
And screw
there's
everybody else. Yeah.
reality and then there's your reality. And your reality is it's messing up my reality. So no.
Yeah. Or just there's actual reality, but then people can perceive it completely incorrectly. It's like we're all wearing
Yes.
glasses behind our eyes, and some
Exactly.
people's lenses are like tinted with conspiracy theories, or other people's lenses are tinted with like the capitalistic mindset of
Yeah.
if your hobby isn't making money, then it's not worth it and stop doing it. It's like no, but it can have so many other benefits, like therapeutic benefits or whatever, right? So everybody has lenses behind their eyes that color the world before them, and some of them can be extremely delusional. That's like does not mirror actual reality at all. And then other
Yeah.
people can have lenses that are crystal clear and there's no coloring to it. And those are the momentary states where you can really just see the world for what it is. And yeah, and then the brain is always changing, right? We're always in different emotional states. Sometimes we're sleepy, sometimes we're awake, sometimes we're angry, sometimes we're sad. But in those moments of clarity, yeah, it is a gift, and it is something that the world would be better off if more people had it, right? Rather than being clouded. So, yeah.
Yeah. It's like a gift that like I think self-awareness is like a big thing, right?
Yeah.
With
Yeah.
me per se. It's like I almost have too much self-awareness where like if I say something I'm very like, "Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry."
Yeah.
Or did I say something that offended this person or like, "Oh, this," it's like I'm too self-aware to the point where like it makes me insane. Like when I used to go to therapy, that was like my one thing that again, my therapist said was a gift that I had. It's and the
Hmm.
reason why I ended up, or in any really main job that I had,
Hmm.
I would always end up somehow being on the top. I don't know how, but I just ended up, and that was, I think, the issue. Was an example would be like, say, this chapstick, for instance, or your water
Yeah.
bottle.
Yeah.
When
Yeah.
you one of the tasks is the chapstick has to be put away and the lid has to be put on your water bottle.
Yeah.
Um, every night, this is a task that has to be done.
Hmm.
Every night, I would go home and still make sure and remember if I did those things.
Yeah.
And I would think if I didn't do those things, then Joe would be upset that I didn't put the lid back on his water bottle because those are one of the things that we had to do. So now I'm going to be tripping out all night.
Yeah.
Make sure that as soon as in the morning I have to wake up before Joe. I have to figure out he's got to wake up before him and then make sure I message him and say, "Hey, I forgot to put the cap back on the water bottle, but I did put away the chapsticks. I really apologize. I will make sure it won't happen again. Let me know if you need me to do anything
Mhm.
extra or anything to make up, whatever." That is a lot different than someone that just goes home and then they just don't care.
Yeah, or they just start drinking, you know? Yeah. Yeah, so that's definitely a blessing and a curse because it's like that level of conscientiousness will put you to the top, but it will also make you so stressed and anxious the whole time. Like
Do
that's
you see
not
how like
you don't
stressed out
feel
I am the
good.
whole time?
Yeah,
Yeah,
you're not
or
at
a water
peace if you're
bottle.
always thinking. Yeah.
It's
And
like the
that takes a
first.
lot of brain power to be constantly thinking that way. I feel like my girlfriend has that kind of mindset more than me. She's extremely conscientious and she is very much will put other people before herself in that regard, where she just won't feel good if she missed something at work, and now she has to wait till the next day, and she'll just be thinking about it the whole time and won't be able to enjoy her life. And it's like
Yeah.
I get the you know, I'm not that way at all. So it's like I have more peace of mind, but I'll also like fuck up and won't know until someone tells me. And I'm like, ah, shit, you know, I got like the mind of a goldfish. It's very unfortunate. And it's not because I'm being like selfish or I don't care. I just actually don't remember or whatever, right? Like I'm just,
Yeah,
yeah, it's a constant struggle to have a
everybody's
bad
different.
memory. Yeah, yeah, everybody's got their own thing going on.
There
Yeah.
has to be somebody that's over. There has to be somebody that's in the middle.
Mhm.
There has to be somebody that just really doesn't care.
Yeah, it is definitely a
There
spectrum.
has to be that spectrum. Yeah, there has to
Yeah,
be. And that's
yeah,
what my therapist is mentioning to me, that you're just on the, and then we mentioned like wavelengths. You're just on a different wavelength, where it's like I kind of relate it to like The Shining. It's like you have a certain ability where other people may not have this ability. And
yeah.
it's
Your
kind of
wavelengths
it.
are higher.
Yeah.
It's,
And it's like, does I kind of just think of it as like, okay, with my alcohol, as I'm not drinking,
mhm.
this is like why I have this kind of gift.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's substituted. It's like people who are blind, their other abilities are heightened to a much higher
Exactly.
degree. And so, yeah, now that you aren't feeding your addiction, your mind is going to a bunch of other places. It's heightened in that regard. Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
hell, for me, so obvious. So as I just said earlier, I don't have that. So it makes me wonder what have I grown? Am I better at anything else now that I stopped drinking? I don't even know. Maybe my productivity, I guess,
You
generally,
definitely
right? My
have.
YouTube channel had kind of been sitting since 2013 and doing nothing, just collecting dust until you know, till a little while ago. So that's something, if anything, right? I'm spending more time creating creative content rather than drinking. So yeah, maybe I haven't
Likewise.
heightened myself that much, but I'm still doing stuff, right? I'm performing way more tasks than I used to, so I got something going on. But
It's
yeah,
at everybody's own pace. That's the thing. For
yeah,
me,
yeah,
that's
yeah.
where again at this in this spectrum, I'm just like exactly we're very similar. This is why we do this. We're pretty much almost like similar people. We're
Hmm.
This is like, like I always say, like the five in my clients. I always say there's a group of five. Those five people are the ones that are like the most similar to you, and sometimes those five people aren't who you think they should be. So sometimes the five people in
Oh,
that
sure.
five is like you think they're like your friends and they're making doing it's like no, actually they're not. They're really not elevating you. They're not. And this is what I'm realizing is I
Right.
don't have very many of these. I have maybe a couple. I mean, two
Yeah,
people.
yeah,
Like it's like I don't have even five that I can compare. Where it's like that's why I think I'm by myself a lot of the times, and
yeah.
this
Because you
is
don't
where
want to
I
surround yourself with people who won't elevate you. So yeah,
exactly. And it's
yeah,
like everybody is at their own pace. That was even great when we had Jesse on because
yeah, yeah.
you can see we're different. Everybody has to remember we're on that step ladder of like
Hmm.
he's a certain amount of sober. I'm a certain amount sober. You're a certain
Yeah,
amount sober. There's
yeah.
certain like steps on like even like where now I'm 3 years sober. I'm on the step where I just feel like this is almost like the hardest time for me right now. I'm really trying to find that balance.
Yeah, well, yeah, yeah. You're struggling with the deepest type of internal anguish, which is how you can find out where your like childhood issues have come from and how you can try to settle that and be able to at least acknowledge it and be self-aware and know what all of it properly is. So maybe I still got to get to that step. So maybe that'll happen a little later on. Because yeah, it's like I'm not talking to my dad. I'm getting a place for the first time, and so maybe having my dog not coughing around me so much will give me more time to kind of do a deep dive because yeah, it's just one of those things where I'll find out when I get there. But as time
Yeah.
goes on, you have nothing but your own thoughts because we're not drinking anymore, right? And like for me, I don't even smoke weed because it doesn't agree with me. I get anxious on it. So it's like
Yeah.
the only mind altering drug that I would get into is psychedelics, and you can't do that casually. That's like an 8 hour session you have to do with other people and with a guide, and you should only be doing it once every 6 months. And like there's a lot of rules behind it, so that's not something I can use as like a relaxing outlet. So
Yeah. No,
yeah,
not at all.
yeah. So it's one of those things where just time will tell in that regard of where exactly we find ourselves and how we can progress ourselves and yeah, yeah,
Progression. It's progression, and
yeah,
again,
life.
it's life. Like everybody's in their own like for me at one point I was honestly, Joe, like at one point I was just at the point where I had no idea kind of what I wanted to do, where I was just, these are my talents, let me try to make money off of my talents. And it's now I'm at the point where it's like, okay, now I'm more secure and things like that, where because I'm now so much more secure, I
Hmm.
don't really have my brain working like it was before, where
Yeah.
because I was constantly trying to like gain that like um I don't know, I'm trying to gain certain level of like success, I guess. I don't know how to put it.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, no, no, just establishment. You're trying to establish yourself from the ground up. So,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah, you're putting in a different kind of effort, or your mind was in a different place than it is now that you are established. So now it's about how do you either change the game or continue to progress in a different state.
exactly.
Yeah, yeah. I feel like I'm doing the same thing, right? Because it's like I only tried to get into the movie business as soon as I stopped drinking. So that's like
And
progression
you've
in real
been
time. So
killing
it's
it.
like well, hopefully, I mean, I am having to bow out for a bit just to start making rent. I want to have a consistent job, but I still have free weekends and I still have connections that I've now made that have brought me returning work. And that's kind of what it's all about is being able to get those friends that you can now have consistent gigs with, where it's like if you make
Exactly.
the right friends with the right producers, then they'll find you work versus every single time starting fresh and just like applying to strangers online and hoping for the best. So
Exactly.
it's a slow road, but it's still moving. It's still
And
constantly
then
progressing.
once it starts to really pick up, then it's like it
Then it
just
becomes a
picks
game
up. It just
changer
like, yeah,
where
it
yeah.
just picks right up. And that's like where for me, that's where I was mentioning like last, like that's how it was for me. Like it's like it's just you
Mhm.
do things here and there, here, and then all of a sudden it's like now I don't even like it's crazy to me how like I'm at the point where like I don't even have to like post anything on my Instagram, nothing. I'm just like living life and customers, clients are coming to me.
Yeah.
And it's almost like I'm stressed out now where it's like I don't want to do this anymore because I'm just stressed out. I don't want to be stressed in life. I just want to make
Right.
money and be happy and like not stressed out. So
Yeah,
again,
yeah.
it's like at a point where I'm just learning again different things
Mhm.
about myself. Like you,
Yeah.
this move is going to be really good for you though. It's going to be a real game changer. It's going to be like
Yeah. Well, I'll
money.
say this.
It's going to
It's
be
not
great.
yeah, my girlfriend and I had been together 3 years. So if you do the math on that, I was drinking while with her, and that's terrible. I feel like I already talked about that, but yeah, and so much has changed in my life being with her, and then to specifically have COVID happen where we stayed together, we just performed the roommate experiment for 6 months, and it worked. It was a success. We didn't break up. We didn't like get sick of each other and like hate each other and stuff. So it's like we were together 3 years, but we were together on and off constantly, right? I would like see her one day, not see her the next day, that kind of thing. So now that we finally uh were able to use this pandemic to our advantage to like see if we would get sick of each other or not, and then we didn't. Now it's like we know before even moving in that we're good. So it's like that's not even a what if, right? Where it's like we sign a year lease contract and then it's month to month from there, but it's like we're good. Like so
I'm
it's the
happy to hear
progress
that.
has kind of already happened. Yeah. So now it's just a matter of like us actually doing it and then having our own place and then seeing what
It's gonna be
happens.
great. Yeah, it's gonna be
Yeah.
great. And like whatever happens, happens. It's all part of a learning experience. It's gonna be great. I think it's gonna be a
Yeah.
real great, nice change for you. That's when I
Yeah.
heard about
It's
this. I'm like,
roads
that's great.
unknown, you know,
Yep.
even though everybody does it and everybody's seen it happen to others around them, it's like you don't know till you do it yourself. So it's like
Yeah.
my sister just had a kid, and it's like I see that from the outside, but until I have a kid myself, I'll have no idea what that experience is like until I do it. So it's all just
Yeah.
about the experience of life, where it's like, yeah,
Experience.
these
It's really gonna
little
be.
internal milestones.
It was definitely 100% a game changer for me when I moved out of my
Yeah.
house. Like I moved out and then I moved back in
All right. Yeah.
and then moved out again. So when I moved back in, it was just
You're
moving
like, I
back
can't go
in
back.
is horror. It was horror. That's when I realized that I had to stop drinking when I moved back in.
Oh yeah, no kidding.
Right.
Yeah.
So when I was living at home, that's when I had stopped drinking because
No
it was
kidding.
just it was just crazy. I was never drank so much in my life. Remember, I was telling you I had seizure, like crazy things.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
was waking up and like I wouldn't even remember like the day. Like the
Yeah.
whole
Yeah.
like my memory would just be like swiped.
Yeah.
And it's like crazy when you like drink so much that you literally you're trying to draw memories.
And
Blank.
there's just nothing. Yeah, yeah.
Blank.
And
It's like
that's
how
something
is that
that,
possible?
yeah, and we talked about that before. That's like experiencing death is nothingness. And we're just like, what happened the
Yeah.
night before? And you're trying to think, and you're like, there's nothing. And it's like that's
Nothing.
like the same as dying. It's like I literally just didn't exist. Like I was gone. It's like you're still
Yeah.
doing stuff, but you have no memories. You're just like it was just gone. Like I just was didn't exist for that time period. It's
It's
insane to think about.
insane. Yeah. Like when you think
Yeah.
about it, you're like, oh my God, I really can't believe that's how I used to like carry on and just like live my life.
Yeah,
And
yeah. And then continuing to drink. Yeah, it is insane to think about, like after the fact, like
yeah.
looking back. It was like, how the fuck did I do that? Like that is actually insane.
Like if you were to look back on yourself, you would be like, wow, that person is super destructive to their body and to
Yeah.
themselves. Like they must be really in pain. Like it's so sad.
Yeah.
And then now that I'm like out of that atmosphere and out of it, and sober, I realized that like when I'm just dealing with certain little things with my family, that's when I it really brought me back. Like I mentioned in part one, it really just brought me back to that situation. And I noticed that a lot of the times in my dreams,
Yeah.
um, it's always usually at my first elementary school or my first like home
No
where we
kidding.
lived as a family. Yeah,
So it's
it's
reoccurring. Yeah.
always in it's always in those spots. And I don't
Hmm.
know why. It's like was I the happiest at that school or was I used to get bullied a lot in the elementary school. Um
Right. Yeah.
and I think that maybe kind of has something to do with it. Like I don't have closure on the bullying or something. I don't know.
Yeah. 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 That sounds like that would be it. I mean,
And maybe that's kind of why I'm to the point where I'm such a people pleaser. I don't know. I'm
mhm.
really honestly, Joe, like every day I'm really trying to just pick apart it why I'm this way. And same
Yeah.
with like at my household, I'm like, what happened in that home where I constantly am back in that home always. I'm like, it must mean something, and I just don't
It's
know what.
yeah. Yeah. That, no, that's literally what it
So
is. Actually, so I can at least say this is I am also a yes man, and unfortunately not to the same degree as you, spectrum wise, but I try whenever I can, right? Whenever I'm not forgetting stuff. I'm
yeah,
always a yes man. Always. I'm always like doing whatever to make other people laugh. Like I'm and then anybody like tries to make me feel good. And I'm like, no, forget no, you. I want you know, it's about you feeling good, right? Like I'm always that way. And
yeah,
I
people pleaser.
wasn't necessarily bullied in school, but outside of school, I had a next door neighbor, and they had three kids, and the two younger ones were my older brother's age and my age, and the four of us would hang out together. And between the four of us, I was the most sensitive, and like I don't, and they literally bullied me. So it's like
Oh
I
yeah,
wasn't scared to go to school. School was fine. It was when I got home, I was constantly ridiculed and bullied and put down and made to feel like the way that I was wrong because it wasn't like them, just for being more sensitive or artistic or whatever, right? It's like I just yeah, like I was just a little wuss or whatever. And the weird thing is one of the neighbors was a girl, but she was like a tomboy.
okay.
And so I was like the most feminine one out of the four of us. And so they just like tore me apart because of that. And so I feel like that's it didn't like turn me into someone who needed to be like toxically masculine, because you know how that's like a serious issue that exists within men is how they don't talk about their feelings and they're just trying to be macho all the time. I never ended up becoming that. I was always like, no, I'm going to be who I am. But at the same time, yeah, I was always someone who's trying to people please, and it could only have stemmed from that. Like that's the only thing I can imagine. And just this combination of like there's no one person that I base this off of, but I'm a Canadian, and yet sometimes I hear myself saying things with kind of a New York twang. And I don't, and I, it's not like I traveled to New York a bunch when I was younger, but like that
A New
seems to be
York
something that
twang.
exists. Twang, yeah. Well, that's like a term they use for Southern
I
thing, a
love
Southern
that. I
twang.
love
And
that.
it's just
Yeah, I
like,
love
hey, like if they're
that.
Texan or whatever, and I'm just using it for New York. But I don't know where that comes from. Is that me trying to be masculine by like watching movies that are from New York or something, like the Batman movies from the 80s? I have no idea. But and I'm just saying that like for the first time. Like this isn't something I've
It's
actually
just
thought about.
something.
But
Yeah, it's just like
It exists. I at the very least know that that exists, and that's a form of my mannerism. And also, I have like like a non-existent relationship with my dad, and yet I have a lot of his mannerisms, and that's just a biological thing, right? Like my vocal box is based on my mom's and his, and I'll just like any girdiness I have, or just like huh, or just any sounds I make sound a lot like him. I'm like, fuck, I can't escape this guy. It's very strange, but um,
Interesting. Yeah.
it's things you got to reckon with. Yeah, where it's like if you don't like somebody or want to emulate that person, you still do. That's kind of annoying, right? So that's just a thing that exists within me. But
Yeah.
it is what it is. Yeah, at the very least, I at least know that those events, right? Like nothing. I don't feel like I'm anything's closed off from earlier in my life. I don't think that was something where I'm like, what if something happened to me when I was younger, like 3 years old, and I can't remember? But it's like I don't think anything happened. I think it was
Yeah.
just yeah, like me having a shitty kind of childhood when I was home. And that's the weird thing. I just wasn't bullied when I was in school. And I would be the perfect victim for it. I was the kid that you would bully because I was super sensitive. I cried all the time. But it didn't happen. If anything, I was bullied most by the teachers. They would always pull me aside and like I was the one they would pick. It's very strange. But
Yeah.
anyway,
Like,
anyway.
I'm thinking about it. I'm just like, oh, it's making me so like
It's like, yo, childhood was shit.
sad. It's making me like so
Yeah.
sad. Yeah, because I'm just like, is that like, I don't know what would help me kind of like resolve that. You know what I mean? It's like I can't go back in
Yeah.
time and like beat them all up. Like it's like what?
How can you find a
How
conclusion
do
to
you find
that?
conclusion to that? I've thought about like finding them on Instagram and then just sending them a mean message, and I'm like,
Yeah,
no,
yeah, sure.
that doesn't make
Send
any
them a bad
sense.
review if they're a business owner.
It doesn't make any like. Why would you do that? And I'm just thinking like
Yeah.
little things, like just things that run through your mind. You're like, what? I gotta find some sort of like closure with things. I think that's my issue with most things is I need to find somehow to get closure with my family and my
It's a lot
childhood
harder
or
with your
something.
family because they're currently with you. Yeah. If anything, I think
Yeah.
it'd be easier with the people that aren't around anymore. Write them a mean letter and then burn it, where you just explain that they were shit. I'll say this though,
Yeah.
I did do that with my dad and it didn't work. So I, I don't know if the letter thing is the best version, but that is something that I know exists in therapy. They say try to do that.
Yeah. You just write
So,
something and then you burn it or don't send it, but then you actually send it to them by accident.
yeah, yeah, that's how good movies work. Yeah. But
They
okay,
always
so
do that.
actually, with a super wild segue here, jumping to the movie, I feel like um, we should say the plot, but only the parts that reside around the drinking to give the audience kind of what the movie's about, and then we could sort of jump back to how it relates to us. Because I feel like for
Okay.
those that haven't seen the movie, maybe they don't know in what way that we're
True.
talking about ourselves exists
Exactly.
with
Yeah.
this character. So, first things first, The Shining. For those who haven't seen The Shining or a review of The Shining came out in 1980, I believe.
Yeah.
Um,
Or 82, 1982 or
yeah,
1980. I
but
haven't
it's
either. Hold
based
on.
it's based on a Stephen King novel that came out earlier than
Oh,
that, obviously,
1980. Yep, you're right.
1980 on the dot.
1980.
Yeah,
Yep.
and it is about a man who gets possessed by a haunted mansion or haunted
Danny.
hotel, and
Denny.
well, for The Shining, it's Jack. All work and no play makes Jack a dull boy.
Yep.
He
Oh
he
yeah.
gets
True.
possessed into drinking again after he had recovered from drinking from accidentally hurting his son, and the house possesses him to drink again. He drinks again, and then attempts to murder his wife and son and fails, which is the funniest outlook to have after the movie's done. It's like it's scary, but then you think about like the past guy who got possessed, murdered his family, and then this guy doesn't even murder one of them. So it's a good way to fail, right? But he ends up dying. He just hangs out and freezes to death in the maze.
He's like, I'll take the
Now,
job. I don't
that's
know who
right.
would
Yeah,
take that
yeah,
job. Like, who does
yeah.
this? Okay, but whatever.
Yeah.
Go ahead. They always do. They always take the job, though.
They always
But
take the
okay, go
job.
ahead. Go ahead. Keep
But
going.
now we jump to the sequel, which I believe, I don't know the actual number, but the book came out like 20 years later too. It wasn't an immediate sequel for Stephen King. So the book took a long time, and the movie based on the book, and this one's a more faithful adaptation than not Stephen King, Stanley Kubrick's film. This film is a more faithful adaptation, and it revolves around the son of Jack, Danny or Doc, as they call him because he loved watching Looney Tunes, and that's hey, what up, Doc? That's something Bugs Bunny would say. So his nickname was Doc as a kid. He had this latent psychic ability where he was able to see the dead, or at least be able to transceive them through whatever
I
spectrum of wavelength that his mind was on. He
I
had
have this
this,
ability, by the way. It's not seeing
and this
dead
ability is
people, but
real. Yeah. And in The Shining, he's but a child, and he goes through a very traumatic experience of his father trying to murder him and his mom. So obviously, you can imagine that's gonna fuck a kid up. So the sequel takes place with him as an adult, where for the last 20 years he has had a drinking addiction, which is the same thing that his dad had. So it's clearly hereditary, but it's also based on childhood trauma because he had, aside from actually him being almost murdered by his dad, he sees fucking ghosts. That in of itself is the most traumatic thing in the world. Imagine seeing dead people. That's so scary, just visually, like that. That
yeah, nobody
I'm
ever
trying
wants
to
to see
imagine
dead
that
people on
sensation.
any levels.
You know,
Nobody
kids
wants
see
to see
ghosts
dead people.
sometimes, according to Kid Cudi. Yeah. So this kid sees ghosts
Kid Cudi.
sometimes, spirits, and it's very bad because they're hungry and they want to eat his soul. And he is able to lock them away, which is also a actual phenomenon that children do. Is when something traumatic happens, their brain locks it away in their subconscious, and they don't know what happened, and they live their life with this trauma, but without knowing what it is, so that they can function. It's a survival tactic that the brain does without telling the brain. It's very, very annoying, but also very good, I guess, for the time being. Um, but it leads this character Danny to drink a lot, and it's hard
Yeah,
liquor. Like he hits the booze and gets in fights and fucks random chicks and steals their money. Um,
yeah,
and the
which is
film
like
picks,
crazy, insane. But like also
yeah,
too, essentially what um is when he drinks, it doesn't it like
it
it
numbs the
helps the shining. Yeah,
yeah, it helps numb the shining so that he doesn't have to experience the trauma that it can
exactly.
bring.
Like it just
Um,
suppresses it a bit. Yeah,
yeah, which is also something that drinking does for everybody. It numbs their sensations, it numbs trauma they may have.
right. This is
Um,
why, for instance, again, relatable. I have
yeah,
the shining. I'm
yeah,
just saying.
that's what's up. You got the vampire. You got a combination of being a vampire and having
Well,
the
it's
shining.
gonna get into that. We're gonna yeah.
Yeah, 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 yeah. In a part that doesn't so much relate to the drinking element, but is still very important to the plot. He's living his life to the point where he finally
It's just
uh
crazy. Yeah,
he finally breaks down and is able to quit drinking. And he's
well
like
he
homeless, a drifter, a
something
lot happens.
happens. He steals from his mom or something, or like something
No.
something happens,
So
and then he's
his mom
like, I'm
his
done.
mom ends up dying from something not related to ghosts or his ability, but she ends up dying, and he just leaves. And this happens when he's like a teenager, and he becomes homeless. He becomes a drifter, and he ends up almost stealing from this woman, but then doesn't because the ghost of his mentor, I guess you could call him, from the first Shining movie, the chef.
What's his name? Billy or Jim or something? Wait, what's
I,
his
I
name?
I honestly don't remember. I don't
I think
know.
it's
Just chef
Billy or something,
Billy
right?
Bill.
Because
Sure.
I don't know.
We can
Okay,
call him
okay,
that, regardless of his
okay.
name. You know, the audience will now know him as Bill or Billy or the chef. He ends up dying in The Shining, but then his ghost is still a mentor to Danny and teaches him how to lock the things away. And then when he's about to steal from this woman, now that he's an adult and an alcoholic, he's like, "She's got a child, Danny. You can't steal from her." And he's like, "So she probably stole from me to get this coke that she got that he can't remember because he was blackout." And the ghost is like, still, don't do it. And he's like, fuck. He's like, all right. So he doesn't. But he
Yeah.
also doesn't do anything to help the situation. This is a single mother with a drug addiction, and she's also an alcoholic, and he just leaves them. He just dips, right? One night stand out of there. Then he's staying in a hotel after going to a new town, and he ends up waking to the woman and the child dead, like in the bed with him, and it's an
So
apparition. It's not
awful.
real. But yeah, so
So
those two
scary. I
people
hate that
died,
part.
and that experience was so traumatic for him, knowing that he could have stopped it, he could have changed things, but he didn't. He just left them with that awful situation that woman and child were in, and that guttural guilt is able to shake him out of his addiction, and also the fact that situationally he now has a friend that he met in this new town, whereas before he
That's
never had
Billy.
anyone he
That's
talked to.
Billy. That's the guy's
That
name.
guy's Billy. Okay,
That is
the
Billy.
chef is not Billy,
Yeah. No, that
but we
guy's
got to know
Billy.
it's
The
Billy.
friend, his
Yeah,
name's Billy. I'm like,
the
who's
friend is.
Billy then? Who's Billy?
You remember the Billy?
That's the friend. Yeah, Billy is the friend.
So Billy takes Danny to AA, and then the
Helps
plot
him and
happens
like
basically, and then that's when the story actually starts. But this was like the intro to the story, is him finally getting clean. Um, and then it goes to like 7 years later, and he gives this very harrowing speech about how when he drank at first, he saw his father in himself, this angry, violent man that
yeah,
existed inside of him, and he like drank the same
it's
type of
like
alcohol, whiskey,
that
and
fire of
yeah, and he talks about a fire too. It's this fire that's burning inside him that existed
step
before
fire.
him. It existed in his father and his father's father. And it's almost a little piece of his dad now that his dad's gone. This is how he remembers him, is with drinking, because
So
that's
relatable.
what
Yeah.
his dad gave to him, was this addiction. And so every time he drank, he saw his father in himself. And it was like awful, but at least he was able to see his father. And so he used that as like a form of coping mechanism. But then once he was finally able to destroy that piece of him, was able to break free and was able to be sober, he he's able to look back and say, like, he just because he was able to see his dad in that sense, that doesn't mean that he wants to see his dad that way. He'd rather remember
So
his
good.
dad, as just a man who was troubled.
Crazy. Yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, and it's crazy. And then so as far as the plot goes, a lot is going on. So we're just talking about the drinking element. So to quickly bring up the antagonists of the film, they're a group that are essentially like spirit vampires.
Yeah.
I'll let you actually explain. Yeah,
They're like
yeah,
a, it's like a they're like a vampire cult essentially that needs to feed off of people to survive.
yeah. Well, not just people, but other people with their
Oh yeah,
abilities,
with
with The Shining.
The Shining. Exactly.
Yeah,
Yes, sorry. And if you like for instance, what is it? The young girl,
yeah. The yeah,
she has the Shining that's like essentially quite strong
hmm very
and
strong, stronger than
she's
yeah.
a young girl so she can't drink and all these things where
You would numb the ability, so it's
so
full force.
she's like a juicy specimen.
Yeah,
Very, very juicy.
the adults are like, we
And
want the child's powers.
they're getting weak.
Yeah,
They're getting
because
real
they're
weak.
extremely old. And the way that they keep their vitality in their youth is by sucking the energy out of the kids, which could be an analogy for boomers and global warming.
And
Who
this is what I
knows?
was like trying to think of like analogies. Like I was kind of writing down. Continue though, yeah.
Yeah. Well, so you got this vampire cult that
What
they
are they
don't
called
sink
again?
their
Oh yeah,
teeth.
they're called the True Knot.
True knot, which is a knot where they all collect together, and the collection is by consuming the energy of these children that they killed. So when you do
Yeah.
that, it kills you and brings you back as a half alive, half dead creature, which is kind of similar to Voldemort in Harry Potter,
It's
where it's like
basically
once you do that, you don't come
Voldemort.
back, which is an analogy for murdering someone. Once you do that, you can't come back from that experience. It'll change you forever and not for the best. So these people that experience sucking the energy out of other people call themselves the True Knot, and they stay together as a little hippie cult, traveling on the road in RVs and stuff, trying to sense other people with the Shining, which is like a radio source. You can
But it's
like
like
feel it.
mainly kids though, no? Isn't it like
It's
mainly
all
kids they
children,
feed
yeah.
off? Yeah, it's mainly
They
kids that they
found
feed
they
off of.
found an adult near the beginning, and instead of eating the adult, inducted the adult into their cult, which the
Yeah.
adult does. And then from that point on, it's like if you see a child, we're not going to induct the child. We want to eat, so we will consume the child. And so
Yeah.
that's their whole thing, is they consume children. And I was told once by someone who genuinely believes this. They say the movie's actually based on facts, and Pizzagate and Hillary Clinton are these vampire creatures in real life sucking
Yeah, this
children.
is
And it's
I
like, holy
wrote this.
shit,
It's
bro.
like, is this a real thing? Like, because this is what they say. Like, they like
Pizzagate.
feed. They also feed the children in like different
They
pot.
feed
Like
off of
they
their
like
fear.
cook. Yeah, and then they cook them and stuff like this, and
Yeah.
they feed off their fear. Yes, there's like, oh my goodness, yeah, okay, cool. I have that in
And
my
it's
notes
like,
too.
bro, I mean, like pedophilia is real, but sucking energy sources out of people, don't know if that part's real. The people could believe it's real. It's like the same as like a Satanist. It's like Satan isn't real, but if someone believes they're real, then they'll still go out and kill someone. So that's bad. So it's not necessarily whether or not actual reality lines up. It's whether or not the people who are part of this cult actually believe in it. So in that regard, let's hope Hillary Clinton isn't part of this thing. But if she is, holy fuck, we got to stop her. I don't know.
Oh
Um,
god, yeah.
but
You
whatever.
won't be able to
That's
find
a
it
hard.
though.
Yeah, yeah. That's hardcore conspiracy theory because where's the
They
evidence?
took that off the net. They won't be able to find that because they took that stuff off the net.
Yeah, so
It's like
goddamn. All I can say is I'm
so
happy to not be a
demonetized.
child anymore, you know? I am not on anyone's list, I
Yeah.
don't think. But
Yikes.
yeah, so that part does not relate to alcoholism, but that's a very important part of the story is how the old feed on the young.
Yeah.
And
Specifically, yeah.
and by the mere fact that same as me, Danny was lucky in that he just wasn't found by these people when he was a child because they were around when he was a child. They could have found him, but he was just far enough away that they never detected his ability, and so he was able to grow into adulthood, get a drinking problem, and now his shining is um,
Kind of like,
impossible to pick up. It's so
yeah,
weak that
it's
no one can
sub.
sense it.
I don't know the what right word. It's like it's subdued. Is that the
Yeah,
word?
it's muffled. It's
It's
yeah,
muffled.
subdued.
It's like
Yeah,
yeah. The more he drinks, the more like it goes away.
yeah. However, there is a second protagonist, not just Danny, this girl.
Suppressed.
Um,
What's her name again? I forget her
I
name.
forget. It's something. She gives herself a nickname. But whomever so this girl is, she's the other
All right.
protagonist because she is a young one. I think she's like 12 or 13. She's a
What's her
young adult.
name?
And she has the strongest shining out of everyone yet. And they call
Rose.
her the whale. They're like, oh, Rose? Yeah. And
Rose. Because
that
I'm
sounds
trying to
right.
think of because
There,
I don't know.
there's
I'm getting it
whoever the
mixed up
hat,
with
Rose the hat.
I'm getting mixed up with Flora. Flora is the
Right, from
flower
the other
from
show.
and
Mike
like it's
Flanagan, baby.
relatable. Yeah, it's like
Yeah.
oh my god. Okay, sorry. Continue. I'm
But
so
yeah,
sorry.
to stay on track, this character is able to pick up Danny once he stops drinking because they're in close geographical proximity to each other. So they end up forming a kinship, a reluctant one because Danny's like, bruh, like I got my own problems. I can't be anyone's teacher. But as the cycle of life goes, now that he's older, he must
He
become a
has to.
mentor.
Yep.
It's
You
just a
gotta
moral
have.
obligation. You have to
You
become
gotta
the
pass
teacher.
it down.
You
Yes.
were
It's just
once
the
the
way it
child,
is.
but now you're the teacher. Yeah. So
Yep.
they form that kind of bond eventually, and it comes to a point where they have to confront these people because this girl's ability is so strong that even though these vampire creatures are on the other side of the country,
They
her
have
her
to.
ability is so strong that they can sense it, so they're coming for her.
They
So
have to
now
get it.
now Danny and this girl gotta stick together and try to defeat this group, which and then the plot goes on, so we won't get into that. So now go watch the
Okay.
movie and we
It's
won't
just the
explain it more.
fact of they're gonna come for that girl, but they don't know Danny's there,
That's
basically.
right. That's right,
And
because
when they
his
do, it's about to go down.
yeah, then a really cool thing happens, which is not related to sexual development. There's just a straight up, I won't explain it, but just
Yeah,
black.
don't.
And then near the end of the movie, um, they get to a point where Danny has to confront his past in order to stop the antagonist, and so he brings the girl on a road trip to a place that was extremely traumatic for him, and he has to confront his demons, and then he ends up literally seeing the ghost of his dad and
Yeah.
talking to him, and his ghost dad is like trying to feed him alcohol, and is like the he's like the world just feeds on you and feeds on you, and this is a very old philosophy, the nuclear family philosophy, whereas the man is the breadwinner and the woman and the children are just taking from you and taking and taking, and that's the mentality that Jack had, very sexist old world philosophy. But he kind of
Yeah.
brings that full fold on Danny near the end, where he's like, um, the sickness of this world are these people that
Will
feed
eat
off
you
of you,
alive. Yeah.
and the medicine is the drink. He's like, all you need is your medicine to feel better again. And he like tries to push the whiskey towards him, and he's
Yep.
just saying like, instead of taking it, he talks to his dad and confronts him, talking about how his mom died. And he was like, I couldn't look at her because I could see these things on her, these black flies that weren't real, but they were this spectral thing that I could see with my abilities.
Yeah.
And you weren't there for us because you drank again and because you went psychopathic. And I was just alone with her, having to be an adult, having to essentially parent my own parent as she was dying. And I just need you to know that that's how you left me, and that just wasn't okay. And now that's just going to be a part of me for the rest of my life. And he's like, no, I'm not going to fucking drink anymore, and like kicks the thing away. And that was his final temptation, because there's another point earlier in the movie where he almost drinks again. But he finally is able to confront the trauma of his childhood and and
So
succeed. And
relatable to me right now. So relatable to me
yeah,
right now. This is literally the I'm going through the. You're just talking my life right now,
yeah.
basically.
but it's these traumas that live with us for the rest of our lives. They don't go
Yeah,
away, but
they
us
don't.
being able to confront them um, is like medicine, right? When he's talking about how whiskey's the medicine, it's like
No,
confrontation is the medicine. That's what
confrontation.
will actually make you feel better. That's what will actually give you closure,
Yeah,
is to be able to confront these things, if not to the people specifically, to yourself, to be able to write it down or talk to yourself or have these thoughts unobstructed and
yeah,
undistracted and just know that it happened and that there's no changing that, and
yeah.
to instead of hiding from it, just know and just think the thought and be like, yes, this is what happened to me, and but
Yeah.
now I'm an adult and now I'm living my life,
Yep.
and there's nowhere but forward from here, right? I'm not going to let the past hold me anymore. Yeah.
Right. Yep. Yep. 100%, Joe. Honestly, yeah. It's like you couldn't have said it better. I'm like lost for words right now because it's so true, and it's it's interesting because it's like Jack is his father, so it's like the
Mhm.
temptation of like just his it's his father, like who
Giving him the
that's
drink, yeah.
who you look up to, that you look like it's just so
Even if
hard,
even if you
it's so
hate your dad,
hard.
you still can't not know that he's your dad, and him have that effect over you, that emotional power. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's just like wow, it's a great movie to put into retrospect into just
Mhm.
kind of real life. And there's so many times where like even I had texted my dad. I said, with in part one, guys.
Mhm.
This movie is just very relatable to what I just kind of went through this week. And
Yeah.
even texting my dad, I said, if I were to drink like during this situation, it would be over for everybody. Like seriously, it's just
Yeah.
like it's. I would just let it rip. Like I would say anything that I felt, I would have said it, and
Yeah.
I would have let them have it. But it's like, is that what is really going to make things better? I don't know, and I have to kind of figure that out. And that's what I'm trying to essentially confront. And
Mhm.
it's almost like by them kind of antagonizing me all the time, it's almost like Jack coming in my face and saying, "Have the drink."
Have the drink. Yeah.
Just have the
Yeah.
drink.
Yeah. No
Please
kidding.
just have it. Just have it because it's the
Yeah.
only way you're going to get through this crazy world. But I'm like, no, I got The Shining. I ain't got time for that.
Yeah, you're above that. There are
I
better
don't
things
have
in
time for
life.
that. I can
Yeah.
figure it out. Like you mentioned, it's kind of like scary to say, but it's like it didn't kill you.
Yeah.
It
That's
didn't
true.
kill you. All this stuff didn't kill you, and you're not drinking, so it's you can handle it. You just got to find that balance. You got to find your way in the world where maybe you don't. Maybe you know how there's Thanksgiving and there's Christmas, and maybe you only see them on New Year's.
Yeah.
That's it for the entire year. It's like something has to. You got to figure it out, and you'll get there. But the key is D turn down the drink.
Yeah.
That is the main message. Is like even I don't care who you are, family, friends, the queen, king. I don't care.
Yeah.
I know for my own sanity that the drink is not what I need.
Yeah. Even if everybody, even if all society says that that's what you need,
Yep.
even if
Because that's what
everything and
society
everyone,
says.
yeah.
He says it to him. He says it in a way where he's like, "This is the like the nastiness and the garbage and the pain of the world. Like how
Yeah.
take this. Like
This
this
is
is how
how
it's gonna relieve
this
it."
is how it gets better. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like,
So it's
no,
like,
fuck that and fuck you.
how
Like,
do you?
I'm
It's
not
like,
doing
how do
it.
you deal? I just don't get it. It's like, how do you deal with it? It's like that's the thing. It's like, and that's the part I'm trying to really figure out. Is like, I think I just need to get more hobbies that exert me more. So I think that's why I'm gonna focus more on nutrition and working out. I think I need to be physically like exhausted.
Yeah. Well, yeah, exercise especially is something that
I'm just gonna exhaust
gives you a lot
myself.
of serotonin. It makes you happy. Yeah.
Remember,
It'll exhaust you in all the right ways.
and
Yeah.
remember too, like I was mentioning, how like it's just the fire in me, and like when I
Hmm.
drink, it's like it's like it it literally like fuels the fire,
Yeah.
and I've never felt this way in so I haven't because it's 3 years.
Yeah.
I haven't felt
Yeah.
this way in so long, and I'm just thinking, wow, my family is really trying to fuel this fire. They're really trying to get this fire. They're trying to throw liquor on this fire. Like
Trying to
they're trying to
fuck
throw
you up.
whiskey
Yeah.
literally on this fire. So no, I'm gonna throw. I'm gonna take the water. And I'm gonna throw the
We get
water
some
on it.
water and put it
Yep,
out.
I'm gonna put the
God
water
damn it.
in it.
Yeah.
Let the water go through the system
Yeah.
and put that out slowly, and I'll figure it out.
Yeah. Especially because, yeah, it's drinking is one thing because it releases your inhibition, but there are other ways to find general catharsis and feel good situations, which, yeah, exercise is one of them. Can make you feel really good. Um, Sex always helps. Unless you're asexual, then it will not do anything for you.
Yeah, I'm
Um,
straight sex, and I ain't getting no
and
sex during COVID, so
dang, yeah.
just
Jill, you didn't get any Jill in there?
nothing.
Well,
Zero.
so I'll at least say this for anyone who, never feel bad about masturbating because even though I have a girlfriend, my sex drive is so high that for me I gotta at least do it once or twice a day. Like everyone's got their own pace, I guess. So it's like you could just not have anything. You could just be dry for a month or two, and that would be okay. But
A month or two, Lord Jesus.
yeah,
Oh my
that's a long
God.
time. Yeah.
What the? But like some people watch this right now are probably just listening and
Like,
they're like,
yeah, that's
oh
me,
Lord
bro. Like,
Jesus
how
Christ.
dare you laugh? Yeah,
I
but
literally was watching this one thing where I felt so like it was like one of these like guys I follow on like Instagram where like they do the same thing I do. They do like marketing.
yeah,
And this guy was going on a rant. He was like, COVID this, COVID that, and then he was like doing this thing where it was like ask me questions. Like, what do you think? People were just asking, like, what do you think about this? And then there was like something about like, what do you think about the porn industry? And it was like,
yeah.
do you know how like it's like something like tweaks certain people? It's like
Right, yeah.
that tweaked him, and he
Just set
went
them
on
up.
to like four different stories on this one question where he was like, stop masturbating, and like the world just wants you to masturbate so you can just like
What?
not realize all these things. And I'm just like, what? And then he's like, maybe if you
That's
people stop
biological.
literally he was like, maybe if people stop masturbating you would find a woman. I'm like, but isn't he single? Like I'm just so convinced.
Yeah, what a
He
what a
went
random
off.
thing to
He
say.
went
Yeah.
off. I was like, this guy sounds like he probably doesn't get any. Like
Yeah,
I
he
don't know. It's
sounds
just like
he sounds
he
sexually
sounded.
frustrated. He sounds like
Yeah,
he's clogged up a bit. Yeah.
it sounds
He's
like
got to
he
let
needs a
loose.
bolo.
Yeah.
That's what it sounds like.
That's funny. Yeah, straight up. Yo, that's
Interesting.
a lot of the problems of the world are sex-based, like repression and shit, thanks to stupid ass Catholicism.
But oh, okay, but also too, like this is one thing that I always say is as a
Yeah.
male, I'm sorry,
Yeah.
females, I don't know how you're gonna figure this out, but I always say, because like for me, like every now and then I'm like, okay, I'm so stressed out, smoke a joint. It's just like,
Joint, busting
what?
nut,
It's
whatever it
like,
takes.
okay, fine, but like it just doesn't blow a load, man. Gentlemen,
Blow
blow
low.
load, you're fine. You'll
Blow
be
your
fine.
nose. You
Yep,
downstairs
you'll
nose.
be
Hell
fine. You'll be
yeah.
fine. Everything
That's
will be
what's up.
fine. Have a nap, have a sandwich, and you're good.
Mhm. Well,
Enough said.
I would say the same would work for women. The only statistical difference is that sex drives, they're a lot higher statistically for men, so it might just not do the same for a number of women, but then it also does for another portion, right? But yeah, like for 70% of men, it's like got an issue, feel stressed, bust a nut, It's the
Yeah.
easiest thing.
And
And then that
females,
would
you
be
know what
like
I mean. Y'all know what I
30,
mean. I know some of
30 or
y'all can.
40%. Same thing, just flick the bean until you're good to go,
Yeah, like I know some of you women can get it off, but like you know what I mean. All right, damn. It's just a lot
Yeah.
easier for us, man. It's like ingrained in us. It's like we're like touching our little things since we came out of the womb. Like,
And also it's a lot quicker
it's like
too. Like
yeah, it's just like
inside of a minute. If you want to like race yourself, like set a personal best for how short
my goodness, this
it
is
could be.
that's like when you're like high school, like no, not high school, like when you're
Like
like
12,
getting your
13,
like
that
first
hits.
like job. No, it's like when you're getting like your job and you have to like, oh, I got 10 minutes before I got to go to work.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. How
So bad.
late can you be before leaving your house to get to work? Yeah. How much
We're
sleep
so
can I
bad.
get?
My God, we're
Yeah.
so bad. Just blow a quick load before work and then two
Oh
minutes
yeah. Oh,
late
that's what you said. Yeah,
while
yeah,
you're
yeah.
clocking in.
Yo,
two
bust a
minutes
nut
late.
as you're walking in. Yeah. Just rub your legs together, Learn how to do it hands free.
Oh god, we're so
But
bad.
so yeah, moral of this entire podcast is feel stressed, bust a nut. But aside from that, it's
Basically.
Spooktober, so bust a spooky nut if you want. I'm sure there's a lot of Halloween themed porn out there. Oh, also, I guess as a response to what you're saying with that guy who's like had
Oh, he
four
went
stories about the
off.
porn
He went
industry,
off. I was like,
society doesn't want you to bust a nut. Society caters to what is out there, right? It's like
yeah.
it's very
What do
straight.
you
It's not a
mean?
conspiracy that there's like porn everywhere. It's like because we're sexual creatures, bro. Like we want it. It's
Yeah, it's
biologically
like I
ingrained
just
in
want to
us to
bust
have
a
sex
nut
drive.
and it's like I would just want to bust a nut and I'm not single. Like what? Why? I just felt like he was
Why
going
not?
off. I'm like, what is going on? It was just so odd. I was like, but I think I can agree to some extent because it's like that's how I think about mainstream media. Like, is that what Netflix
Right.
does? Isn't that what it's Netflix and chill?
It's all about
Isn't that
binging
what
and
that is? It's like you
yeah,
just want to. They want you to come home and be not alcohol. It's
not
like
yeah,
it just
exactly.
like you could just tell it hit a nerve with him. It was like he
Yeah.
clearly doesn't masturbate.
And he doesn't like the idea
Clearly,
of it.
yeah,
Usually.
clearly doesn't
Yeah.
have a girlfriend, or
Yeah.
probably has a micro penis or something. It's usually I don't know, just something like this.
Something's going on.
Something,
Yeah.
something, something. You just knew it just
You can
flipped.
be extremely happy and in a loving relationship with a micro penis. You just got to find
You
the right girl.
can. Yep.
Yeah. That's all it's about. But yeah, don't be ashamed of whatever your sexuality is. Whether you have a low sex drive or high sex drive, it's like you can people with
Just do
low sex
you.
drives or no sex drive at all can still bust a nut in other ways where it's like it won't be a sexual thing, but it can be like hugging and kissing and you can like
Yeah, that's like, isn't that what asexual people are?
yeah, like you can still be romantically involved or you can have hobbies that give you the same kind of joy where you love something so much that you get that same kind of
Still
intimate
nuts.
sensation
Like
when it's
going,
not sex.
I don't know why, like we're doing groceries and washing your clothes.
Sure. Yeah. Why
I
not?
don't know. I don't know about those people that, I mean, if they want to come here and do that shit, please come do my
Invite them over
laundry
to do
and my
that. Yeah.
dishes and bust as much nuts as you want, as long as my kitchen's clean and my laundry is folded and
Mental nut
I'm
busting. I
good.
love that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm sure for some people that's a thing. Yeah. But
That's so true. Gosh,
either
guys.
way, hey, thanks for coming on this ride with us and
Yeah,
talking about
what a
Dr.
great
Sleep
time, guys.
as well as just Mike Flanagan in general and talking about ourselves and childhood traumas and busting nuts and everything, right? I
Taking
mean,
it easy, man. Just really,
yeah,
it's some, you got to find some sort of way to cope, right? And that's the hard thing. Like, again, everybody has their own little things. And if it may be busting out, go busting out. If it me having a coffee, I love coffee, go have a coffee. If it
if it's
means,
exercise,
yeah,
if it's
turning
them,
your phone off, going for a
hmm,
walk, taking exercise, something.
yeah,
We're just making jokes because you already know we got jokes up in here. But
yeah, we're
on a
good.
serious note, really, it's on anything that really just helps you do what you need to do to be. And for me, again, I was turning my phone off. I literally was like, I'm done with this conversation. I'm done. I'm turning my phone off.
Yeah,
And I didn't turn my phone off. I just blocked them.
no kidding.
Family or
Yeah,
not, too bad. You're getting blocked. Too bad.
that's what's up.
Just
It's not about
is
family; it's
what it
about how you
is.
act.
Yep.
Yeah,
Too bad.
to treat you
You
like shit,
cross the
get blocked.
boundary. Get out of here. Bye. Block.
Yeah, yeah,
When I'm
that's
ready, I'll
what's up.
unblock. See what
Yeah,
that is. What it is. If they are respectful of that, then they will understand that I pushed a boundary to the point where he blocked me.
yeah,
They won't understand that though. But I have to do that for myself because again,
exactly.
there's a
You can only
reality and
have
then
so
there's
much of a
their reality.
conversation. Yeah, exactly. Some people are inconsolable or in, you know, you just can't talk to them. It's like there's no reasoning with them, so you just have to block them. Yeah,
And I
it's
think that's
unfortunate.
like what a lot of uh I don't know, it may not be for everybody, but I think that's where a lot of alcoholism stems from. And like going
Hmm.
back to the
Family
movie,
issues.
it's like it's
Yeah.
almost like it's genetic. Like it's like
Hmm.
family issues and all these things are it's still hereditary things. Like
Yeah.
having like an example is like my dad, his
Yeah.
dad is not present.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
therefore in my life he's not really present.
Yeah. He
Does that
created
make
the same
sense?
situation without even realizing. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
just the
It's
vicious
just the
cycle. It's
way
history repeating itself.
it's just that's just the way.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean necessarily that like that is hereditary that he's a bad dad. It's just
That's all he knows.
that's all
He
he
ended up
knows.
repeating what happened because maybe he wasn't self-aware, and it just automatically happened where he ended up acting that way.
But could it be to the point where it's hereditary of he doesn't have the drive to change that cycle?
Yeah.
Maybe that part
Yeah.
where that's the part where for me I have the shining where back that off.
Hmm. Well, just yeah, the mere fact that we're human beings means we can overwrite our code. So we're able to be self-aware of a habit and just break it by being self-aware of it and being like, okay, so I have this thing that either I love doing but I know is wrong, or I just figured out that I have this issue that has been affecting other people and I didn't even realize. Now that I know this, or now that I'm paying attention to it, I need to manually change that until what I'm doing manually becomes automatic, right? Form better habits, that kind of thing, right? So yeah, that's what we can do as human beings. That's what the both of us have done by not drinking anymore. We manually had to overwrite our habits and our ritualistic tendencies to drink
Mm,
in order to essentially save our lives, and we were successful. thus far. So yeah,
100%. It's just again like almost like the movie. Like it's just you have to really reflect on those negative things
in
or
order to come
those
through. Yeah,
times. Yeah, to really just give yourself some sort of substance to work off of.
yeah. So
Yeah,
hey,
it's just life will take you places, guys.
that's
Seriously.
right. And also, if it was easy, there wouldn't be such a thing as alcoholism, right?
Yep.
It's life
And
is
every
hard,
yeah.
but that doesn't mean that you need to give up or take the easy road out or whatever, right? It's like it's worth the effort. Things feel better when they take effort, right? And that's something that you learn when you grow up, right? As a child, you just want everything given to you, but then when you grow up, you realize that the best things in life you have to work for.
Hmm.
So
You really
whether,
do, and like
yeah,
it's literally like you said, dude, the best thing in life you have to work for, and a great way to put it every day, start small. It doesn't have to be like these huge like start small. Every day you don't drink, I think of it as I'm putting one more trophy on my stand. Every
yeah,
day. Every day I have a new trophy that goes on my stand. Today I didn't
hmm
drink. I'm thankful.
got it. That's another one. Yeah, 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 yeah. I should calculate how many days I got. I have no idea what it is, but yeah,
Right? That's a
closing in
lot
on
of
it. Yeah,
trophies, man. It's a lot of
yeah,
trophies.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Hell yeah. But yeah.
Well,
So
thanks
hey,
guys.
great. Yeah, great conversation. Thanks for being here, and I guess until next time. Well, so one more plug now at the end of the podcast. What was it again? Film Motel or Cinema Motel?
It's the movie motel. Yes.
Movie. That was the last,
All
yeah,
all of those
adjective.
options are still great.
Yeah, movie motel. Two M's. It's
Yeah,
a
so
literal movie motel
we'll be moving to the movie motel for
for the
movies
future movie.
and
Yeah,
etc. TV shows, all that jazz.
yeah.
So it'd be really
So
great.
yeah,
Yeah. So thanks so
perfect.
much, guys, for listening and tuning in. It's been a pleasure. We're so happy to be doing this. When life gets you down, make the better of things. Do what you can to really just flip that and do you.
Yeah, absolutely. Couldn't have said it better myself. So yeah, and until next time, we hope you guys have a good time. And yeah, we'll see you on the next one.
Yeah. Take it easy.
Yeah. Bye
Bye.
bye.